You know what doctors are telling people now? Go outside, touch some dirt, grow something.
Like actual medicine?
It's called garden therapy, and it actually works. But here's the crazy part. Someone wrote about this over 100 years ago.
100 years ago? Who?
Frances Hodgson Burnett, 1911. She wrote a story about a sick boy in a locked garden. And in that story, nature heals everything.
A locked garden? What do you mean?
A garden hidden behind a wall, locked for 10 years. The door is buried in ivy, the key is lost.
Why did they lock it?
The woman who loved it died inside. Her husband locked the door and never went back.
That's really sad.
It is, but this isn't a sad story. It's about a girl who opens the door everyone forgot. She was an orphan from India, spoiled, angry, alone. But the garden changed her, and she changed everyone.
I want to hear this.
Let's go back to 1911 and hear how one girl brought a dead garden back to life.
Mary Lennox lived in India. She was the most disagreeable-looking child ever seen. Thin, pale, and always angry. Her parents never paid attention to her. Servants gave her everything, so she grew up spoiled and alone. Then a terrible sickness came, cholera. It killed her mother. It killed her father. Everyone in the house was gone. Mary was the only one left, an orphan at 9. Mary was sent to England, to a place called Misselthwaite Manor in Yorkshire. It was the loneliest place she had ever seen. The moor stretched on every side. The house was huge and dark. It had 100 rooms. But most of the doors were locked. Her uncle, Archibald Craven, lived there. He was a sad man with a bent back. His wife had died 10 years ago. He never got over it. He did not want to see Mary. He did not want to see anyone. A cheerful housemaid named Martha told Mary a secret. There was a garden somewhere in the manor, locked for 10 years. Mary began to walk around the manor gardens every day. She walked along the high walls, looking for a way in. An old gardener named Ben Weatherstaff worked nearby. He was grumpy, but a little robin always sat on his shoulder. The robin began to follow Mary too. Every day, the bird sang to her, like a small friend. One afternoon, the robin flew to the top of the wall. It sang, and Mary saw something half buried in the earth. It was a rusty old key. Behind thick ivy, she found a hidden door. She put the key in the lock. It turned. Mary stepped inside the secret garden. The garden was wild and still. Everything looked dead, but some branches were green inside. Mary wanted to bring it back, but she did not know how. Then she met Dickon, Martha's younger brother. He was a funny-looking boy with rosy cheeks. He had a turned-up nose, and animals followed him everywhere. He knew every plant and bird on the moor. Dickon could tame any wild creature with just his voice. He showed Mary which branches were alive. Together they began to dig and plant and water. For the first time in her life, Mary had a friend. At night, the manor was full of strange sounds. Wind blew across the moor, old walls creaked. But one sound was different. Someone was crying behind a locked door at night. No one would tell Mary who it was. Mary asked the servants. They all said it was the wind. But Mary knew it was not the wind. One night she followed the sound down dark hallways. She opened a door, and there, in a huge bed, lay a boy. His name was Colin Craven, her cousin. He was pale, thin, and wretched with fear. Colin was 10 years old, the same age as Mary. But he had never been outside. He had never walked on his own. Doctors said he was too weak. Servants carried him everywhere. Sometimes Colin screamed and cried for hours. The whole house was afraid of him. Colin told Mary something terrible. "I'm going to die. Everybody thinks so." But Mary was not afraid of Colin. She was angry. She told him about the secret garden, about the robin, the key, and the door hidden in the ivy. For the first time, Colin wanted something. He wanted to see the garden. Mary and Dickon made a plan. They would bring Colin to the garden in secret. One morning, they put Colin in a wheelchair. They pushed him through the long paths, past the ivy wall, and through the hidden door. Colin saw the sky above the garden walls. He saw green shoots pushing up from the dark soil. He saw roses beginning to bloom. Birds sang everywhere. "It's magic!" Colin cried. "The sun and the rain and the earth make things grow." The children came back every day. They dug and planted and laughed. Every day, the children came back to the garden. They pulled weeds, planted seeds, and talked to the flowers. And slowly, Colin grew stronger. His pale face turned pink in the sun. One afternoon, Colin grabbed a tree branch and pulled himself up. He stood upright. His thin legs were trembling. For the first time in his life, he felt alive. Then he took a step, and another, and another. Old Ben Weatherstaff, the gardener, watched from the wall. Tears ran down his wrinkled face. The boy who was going to die was walking and then running. Colin made the children promise to keep his walking a secret. He wanted to surprise his father. Far away, Archibald Craven was travelling alone. He had spent 10 years running from his sadness. He had neglected his son. He had neglected everything. One night he dreamed of his dead wife. She whispered, "Come home, come to the garden." In the garden, Archibald Craven found his son, running, laughing, alive.
Wow, that was a beautiful story.
Right? Now let's dig into it. Remember how the narrator described Mary? She was the most disagreeable-looking child ever seen.
Disagreeable. That just means ugly, right?
Not exactly. It's bigger than looks. Disagreeable means unpleasant, hard to be around.
Oh, so not just her face, her whole personality.
Right. One word tells you she was deeply lonely.
So Burnett made the hero unlikable on purpose?
Exactly. Mary doesn't start as a hero. She earns it. Mary wasn't born a hero. The garden grew one. The setting matters here.
The moor, right?
Right. But what is a moor exactly?
I have no idea.
Open wild land, no trees, just wind and grass forever.
That sounds so lonely.
It is. The loneliest place she had ever seen. But here's the thing. The moor is a mirror.
A mirror.
Mary is empty inside. The moor looks empty outside. But both are full of hidden life. And what Mary finds next, that changes everything. So who leads Mary to the garden?
The robin.
A tiny bird, that's Burnett's genius. It sang, and Mary saw something half buried.
Half buried? Like hidden underground?
Bury means to put something under the ground. But it also means to hide, to cover up.
Why did Burnett use a bird, not a person?
Because nature leads the way in this story, not humans.
So everything in this story is buried somehow.
And Mary is the one who digs it all up.
The key was buried. The door was buried.
Burnett hides things and lets a child find them. And then there's Dickon. He could tame any creature with just his voice.
Tame? So he controls the animals?
Not quite. Here it means to build trust. It's not about control, it's about connection.
Like the fox in The Little Prince.
Exactly, and here's what Dickon looked like. A funny-looking boy with rosy cheeks.
He sounds like a Disney prince.
A Yorkshire Disney prince.
Ha! But that's Dickon. He doesn't tame things, he frees them. And the hardest test for these kids, that's still coming. Imagine this, you're lying in bed, it's dark, and you hear someone crying through the walls. You ask the servants, they all say it's the wind. But you know, that's not the wind.
That's really creepy.
Mary heard it every night. Someone was crying behind a locked door.
Why would they hide a child?
Because Colin was wretched.
Wretched? What does that mean?
Miserable, broken, completely without hope.
A locked garden. A locked boy, both buried away.
And Mary finds both. That's not an accident. Colin says something that breaks your heart. I'm going to die. Everybody thinks so.
He really believed that?
Completely. His fear was real.
So he wasn't actually sick?
In Burnett's time, they called this hysteria.
Hysteria? Isn't that just being dramatic?
Today, yes, but back then, a real medical word. Your mind could make your body sick.
So his fear made him sick.
That's the whole point. The cure wasn't medicine. The cure was growing in the soil. When Colin sees the garden, he shouts one word. Magic!
Why magic? Why not just miracle?
A miracle comes from above. You wait for it.
And magic?
Magic is already here, in the soil, in the rain. Burnett even uses the word conjure.
Conjure, like a magician.
It means to make something appear, like a spell.
So nature doesn't need spells. It is the spell.
Burnett didn't write fantasy. She wrote truth in flower language. And then it happens. Colin stands up.
By himself?
By himself, legs trembling. For the first time in his life, he felt alive.
That line.
Old Ben watches from the wall, tears in his eyes.
Why is he crying?
He knew Colin's mother. He watched everything fall apart.
And now he sees her son standing in her garden.
That wretched boy is alive. The garden healed them all. Remember what we said at the beginning?
Garden therapy.
Doctors started prescribing it in the 2010s. Burnett wrote this in 1911.
So she saw it 100 years early?
She lived it. Burnett loved gardens herself. She knew what neglect does to living things.
Neglect? Like ignoring something?
More than that, it means failing to care. Neglect a garden, it dies. Neglect a child, they break.
So the garden and the children are the same thing.
So what was this story really about?
Remember the very first line? The most disagreeable child ever seen.
She wasn't a hero at all.
No, but she stopped neglecting what mattered. The garden, her friends, herself. She tamed the moor, and the moor tamed her.
And everything grew back.
For the first time in his life, he felt alive. That's the magic. Not spells, not miracles, just caring. 100 years later, doctors finally agree. Everyone has a secret garden, something they haven't opened. What's yours?
Tell us. We'd love to hear.